This is the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life Radio Hour. I'm your host, Life Coach Myrna Young, and in the guest chair today is Charlie Hartwell. Charlie is a change agent and operating partner of Bridge Builders Collaborative, and today we are going to be speaking on the topic, funding the movement towards consciousness and awareness. Welcome, Charlie.
Hi, Myrna. Nice to meet you. Nice to be on the show. Thank you for having me.
Yes, you're very welcome. So I'm going to enjoy our conversation today regarding consciousness and, startups. I know that, our audience is interested in finding sponsors and investors for, their initiatives. So I'm going to enjoy learning myself about that. So let me give you a little bit more information about Charlie. Charlie is a change agent who shepherds ideas, resources, and talent to drive global sustainable growth. Passionate about transformation and innovation, a leader who ignites teams to accomplish remarkable results. Charlie is also the chief operating partner of Bridge Builders Collaborative, a group of investors who are supporting startup companies in the space of mental wellness, consciousness, and spirituality. Charlie is a Harvard Business School graduate and has led various roles in 14 different industries over his career. So that's my intro to Charlie. But I always like to hear directly from my guests about what was their journey to becoming, where they are right now. So, Charlie, I see there that you are a Harvard Business School graduate. What was your journey into becoming a startup investor?
It's interesting because it's not a typical journey. I look at it somewhat differently in the things I've done in my life. It seems as though, everything has been around change, growth, authentic leadership, and transformation. And that the role itself, whatever role I take, is really about facilitating change. So I've never served as as an operating partner of a group of investors before, but I have the tools to be able to do that job so that we can create global change through investment. So that's kind of a roundabout way to answer your question, but it's not like one job led to another job and they were consistent. It's a whole host of experiences that I've had that provide the tools to be able to do this one.
All right, so that's great. But what I was looking for was the bridge towards spirituality and consciousness from Harvard Business School. Now, I know Harvard Business School teaches you about business, but why did you like or settle on the consciousness and mental awareness part of it?
Yeah, so I have to say my wife got me into it. You'll probably hear about my wife a lot on this show.
That's all right. That's all right.
I describe her as the wisdom of our family. So my wife has been in the consciousness and spirituality space for 40 years in various roles. And she was involved in something called the Mind and Life Institute. The Mind and Life Institute was founded by a Stanford MBA, a Chilean neuroscientist, and the Dalai Lama to prove through science the benefits of contemplative practice like mindfulness, etc. The organization started 40 years ago. My wife became involved about 14 or 15 years ago. She introduced me to the organization, and the investors that started Bridge Builders Collaborative, they had come together to ask the question, has the science behind mindfulness and mind training gotten to a point where there's anything to invest in that we can help to take that science and scale it through developing companies around it. They needed someone to go out and find whether there was investments. And through the Mind and Life Institute, they got connected to me. And then, they hired me to do that work for them. That was about 9 years ago.
Okay. So that's great. So that's the piece I was looking for.
Yeah, I got it.
You're too humble. Right. Okay. So 40 years, that's a long time to be in the consciousness space. I love that. So, so she's in the consciousness space. Do you practice the mindfulness yourself, or you're just into tell us more about the science of it then, I should say. Right.
Yes, I practice it. And I had my own experience, well before starting this job, of what I might call my own awakening, or my own, deepening of my own conscious awareness.
Nice.
And you asked a question about the science of it. There have been thousands now of research studies around the benefits of mindfulness. That research is ongoing. It's mindfulness for stress reduction, mindfulness for depression or anxiety. Mindfulness has been studied around the world by leading institutions, and that when it got to a point where we thought there was enough validation, that's really when entrepreneurs started to ask the question, how can we take this and create a company out of it and help bring it out into the world. So that was the translation of the science into startup companies.
Okay, so that's great. So so yes, there's definitely a lot of benefits of mindfulness. In fact, I started reading a book this morning. I was listening to a podcast, and I heard Sadhguru on the podcast talk about inner engineering. And I started reading that book this morning. As I do my walk, I listen to podcasts. And so it's absolutely amazing listening to just the first chapter about inner engineering and what made him call himself a guru. It's absolutely amazing. So yeah, the science and the benefits of it is absolutely amazing, as you say. So so one of the questions I have here for you, Charlie, is why do you believe there's a global movement towards consciousness and spirituality? So we mentioned about the benefits of mindfulness, but do you think that the East is coming to the West, or what is the movement?
First of all, I just want to say I love Sadhguru.
You do?
I know him, and I love the man very deeply.
Oh, nice.
Secondly, my own perspective, I don't claim to be right on this, but my own perspective is that there is such a level of stress and suffering in the world that an Eastern practice, which I would say a lot of people claim that comes from the East, but I think there's a lot of other traditions besides just like Buddhism, that practice the tradition. But I think that the tradition is filling a need that we have to reduce suffering, to reduce stress and anxiety. And it's a tool that is coming to and scaling in the United States and around the world to help people to get more in touch with themselves, to help them to connect more deeply to themselves, hopefully so they can live happier and healthier lives and more authentic lives.
Yeah, yes, that's for sure. The first part of it, Sadhguru's book was on joy. And he made the comment that in the olden days that people were stressed because they were hungry, and it was all about survival. But once your belly is full, you should be happy, because that's usually, once you part the survival part of it, then you should be happy. But he made the comment that, or the awareness or the consciousness of the fact that now that we all have full bellies, that we're more unhappy.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah,
Yeah.
we're less happy now that we've got full bellies. Because so I understand what you're saying about stress reduction and mindfulness and reducing anxiety. And it's a great endeavor to fund more of those companies so that a lot more people can have access to it. You don't have to go to India, which is where the majority of these teachings originates, I think. But so that's great. So let's talk about what your strategy is to invest in companies by helping them allow people to go deeper. So tell us about your company and how you help out them, the investors, the startups, I
So
should say, right?
yeah, I think what I'll describe is just so when we make an investment, we try to add value to those investments in several different ways.
Okay.
Um, the first way is through what I would call counsel. My partners are business leaders who have led in many different industries, have many of them have startup experience or have invested in many companies, so they have wisdom that they can provide to the entrepreneur to help that entrepreneur be more successful. The second thing is, because we are so connected in this space, I still think we're the only investors that are solely focused on this space. So we know many of the world's leading spiritual teachers. We know many of the world's scientists. We're connected into the healthcare system. We're connected to other entrepreneurs and investors. So we add connections that help make introductions that help the entrepreneurs in several different ways. Third, for startup investors, because we've developed a really good reputation for being investors that not only care about making money, but we care about making impact in the world. So if we invest in someone, it adds to their credibility. And then finally, and finally on purpose, is we provide capital or cash that helps to fuel them to hire people, do marketing campaigns, build their platforms, etc. But that's the least important to us.
Well, that's great. So coaching or counsel, you introduce them to the leading scientists and spiritual leaders like Sadhguru, and then you provide cash. So how does someone find you, or how do you go about selecting the companies that you want to invest in?
So people tend to find us because we're in the space, and I can provide people with contact information. Our website is bbcollaborative.com. Here's what we tend to use as a funnel or a screening process. When somebody comes to me with a business idea, it's normally they've started their business, they've got their first customers, they've got revenue coming in the door, and we provide growth capital. And what I look for is, first of all, I say, if our investors were to invest in this company, what is the impact that we can make on a global scale because this company is successful? So that's the first and most important thing. The second thing that I'll ask is there science behind the product? Does it need to have science behind the product? And so we try to do an assessment if the science is good, or where are the holes in the science if they don't have that. Third, I look at the entrepreneur. And I actually try to do an assessment if the entrepreneur themselves is conscious, if the entrepreneur is vulnerable, is willing to do their own personal work, it has a managed ego, but also are they skilled at running and running a business and being able to grow that business. The fourth thing that I look at is the product differentiated? Is there a need for it? And is there something that's different about this versus potential competitors where, where I think it's investable. And last, I look at, if we invest in this, how much, potential money can we make from it? Can the company be sustainable? Can it provide returns on our capital? And how much of a return can shareholders expect?
Wow, that is complete. I love it. All right. Well, one of the things I want to circle back to, I like the fact that you said that one of your screening criteria is if the entrepreneur, him or herself, is conscious or they're doing the work. And I love that because, you can go and pick a product. I don't know, like you can go to China and say, hey, you know what, this product is something that I want to market, but you're not really involved in it. You know what I mean? It's just to you a means to an end. It's a widget. That's probably the better word. So, I like the fact that you go through the screening criteria and so you search for global impact. I love that. And the science. So for instance, the only thing that I can think of in my limited experience is that I interviewed the founder of Muse, which is a headset that you wear that you can meditate. So that's the only thing that I can think of that would be in that meditative space. So and that's good science because I think it tracks your brain waves or something like the Fitbit kind of thing. And that's a science. So I like what you said about you wanted to know the science behind a project, but give me an example of, one of your investments that would, maybe fit this model that I've never heard of, or somebody else. That's the only one I can think of is Muse.
So I'll give you a few different exampps.
Okay.
And I'm on the board of Muse, so
wow.
I know the company very
Everybody
well.
that I talk about,
I am pretty connected in the space, and I love Ariel.
That's nice.
Maybe is the person, the woman you interviewed.
That I interviewed, right?
Yeah, I'm passionate about that company, and we've been investors for 7 years. A lot of people have heard of a company called Headspace, which we were, some of the early investors in Headspace. Headspace has done a great job of rebranding meditation and making it accessible, to the modern world. Actually, Sadhguru is on a platform of ours called Insight Timer. Insight Timer, more meditation is done on Insight Timer in the US than all other meditation apps combined. It's a global community of 7,000 spiritual teachers, musicians, scientists that meet a platform community of 16 million, about 500,000 who use it every day. So what I like about that platform is that you can find, it's all free. It's free content. There are 45,000 meditations that are available for free. You could subscribe if you want special features, but you never have to pay for the service. And you can connect with the world's leading spiritual teachers and find content that suits either your spiritual tradition or the type of teacher that you want. Very diverse group of teachers, and it's in 44 teachers are teaching in 44 different languages, so it's very global. I'll just mention another company called Happify, which is kind of a behavioral health platform, has mindfulness, positive psychology, cognitive behavioral therapy, sort of put on an app, and they kind of gamified the experience. And they're actually going through the FDA process to become a digital therapeutic so that it can be prescribed by doctors, reimbursed by insurance companies, and treat, using software to be able to treat actual conditions versus maybe taking as many drugs as we take.
Wow. I love that. So it's called Happy, what's the last one called?
Oh, Happify, Happify.
Okay. Wow, that is definitely. Now I'm going to have links on the show page to this information. So the Insight Timer, that sounds great. I've actually never heard that.
Hmm.
Yeah, so people can log in and get free meditations. Is that how that works?
Yeah, can log in, get free meditations. Again, from 7,000 spiritual traditions in 40
Wow.
languages. So if you speak German, there are several German teachers on the platform. If you speak Portuguese, there's a huge community in Brazil that uses and Portugal that use Insight Timer and their teachers teaching in Portuguese. It's awesome because it's global, but at the same time, what I like about it from a consciousness standpoint is that when I get done with my meditation, I can kind of see who's on. There's a map showing who's meditating. From where are people meditating at any given time? I know how many people are on that, meditating with me. I can tell what countries they're from, and then at the end, I can also like look and see pictures. You can sort of scroll down a list and see somebody from Spain and somebody from South Africa and somebody, so you can actually see their pictures. And to me, this is sort of a global community of consciousness where we're all doing this together, but we're also doing it individually.
That is absolutely amazing. I have to check that one out. I'm a meditator. I meditate, you know, in the mornings and nights when I
Well,
walk.
now you can meditate with Sadhguru for free because he's a great teacher on their platform.
Yeah, I actually love that. And when you were talking, it reminded me. I'm also a fan of Deepak Chopra. Don't tell me you know him too.
I won't, uh, but I won't tell you that. But
Right, but when you were talking, I mean, I stopped to hear you tell me that. Okay, I know him too, but I Deepak Chopra is the one that introduced me to consciousness and meditation. I've been like a follower of him for years, and of course, I've branded off to several other people now. But he was my initial mentor on it. And as you were talking, once in a while, he has this movement where everybody meditates at the same time for peace or something. So when you were talking about global consciousness, because there's something about this, even when you're like praying, if you pray together or meditate together, and it makes an impact into the atmosphere, into the spirituality, into the universe. So I think it's a beautiful thing where when you said that, not necessarily, seeing someone's picture, but what I would like is the fact that I know that globally we're all doing the same thing, and we're going for spirituality, we're going for inner peace, and because that's why you meditate and you're doing it all together. And it affects global consciousness. That's probably the word I'm looking for. So that's beautiful. So I'm definitely going to try that. I heard of Headspace, but I'm thinking that it's almost the same thing as Muse. Is that how?
No,
What's the
Muse is a
science?
hardware device that has that where you can sort of see your brain waves,
Mm,
on an app. You can basically see whether you're in a calm or focus
mm,
state.
mm.
So it connects to your phone. Headspace is more just like a meditation app. It doesn't have hardware component to it.
Oh, okay. All right. So that's probably where I've seen it, somewhere in the app thing. Okay, perfect. Well, I'm learning a lot. So thank you. Um, but one of the things in your bio that maybe we'll talk about now is I'm curious to hear about how you started a nonprofit in the slums or poverty-stricken areas of Nairobi, Kenya, that has served 3 to 5 million patients so far. Can you tell us about that? Is that also part of the global consciousness and spirituality, um, a nonprofit?
Yeah. So in 1986, I'd gotten out of college. I was traveling around the world. I was kind of working, weird jobs in remote places. And the last place that I landed was in Nairobi, where I worked as a social worker for like 3 months. And I learned that I didn't like social work at all. I wasn't good at it. And yet I became passionate about the continent of Africa. I wanted to do something to help create change. I knew it wasn't going to be through social work, but the best way I could think of to try to help people was to start a business. So I found, I had a co-founder in a Kenyan who I co-founded the organization with, and one other guy that I went to college with. And we started this organization called Provide International. Started as a child feeding program. Then, started a business loan program for women, women entrepreneurs. And then really what the community was asking for was a healthcare organization. So they started a healthcare organization. They had the first maternity wards in any poverty-stricken areas of Africa that I know about. It had the first ambulance. We had one of only 2 ambulances in the country of Kenya. They had, some of the first eye doctors and dentists, in those areas. After 9 years, decided to turn it over to the Kenyans so they could run it themselves, not have, Americans overseeing them. I went back, 30 years later for the anniversary, and they had 7 centers. They'd treated millions of patients. They'd been very successful at helping to bring healthcare into the communities. And for me, what was interesting and just, kind of, it's consistent with who I am, which is, it wasn't, I did start it, I co-founded it, but it really was about empowering other people to do something, remarkable. And, the great thing was turning it over and then watching what the folks in the local area did with it.
Wow, that's a beautiful story. So I guess I can call you a humanitarian. Right. That's a great title. So, wow. So, so you started off with the child feed, and then you provided loans for the women entrepreneur, healthcare, ambulance, eye doctors, and the good news is that you turned it over. Now, when you turned it over to the Kenyan government, did you train anybody, or how do you think that they were able to manage it and run it so successfully and grow it to 7 centers?
So I didn't turn it over to the government. I actually, when I co-founded it, I co-founded it with a local Kenyan
Okay.
individual named that I started it with.
Okay.
And part of my role was actually teaching him how to run an organization.
Okay.
And to empower him. He had been a social worker, but he wanted to do something, but he wasn't trained,
Right.
in how to do that. Obviously, he was better at serving the community than I was. And so we tried to help him to provide organizational structure, to learn how to better, sort of market the organization, how to raise money, how to run the business. And, after the 9 years, I felt like I wasn't adding any value, and it was, and that his teammates were able to run with it. I had no idea whether or not it would be successful or not,
Mm-hmm.
but I just thought the best thing to do would be, to turn it over and not have Americans, running organizations. And at least in my experience in Africa, so many Americans are like trying to run these organizations and tell local people, what to do and how to run things. And that's not who I am.
That's beautiful. That's a good story. So I'm glad we brought it up because, like they said, you don't give a man a fish, you teach him how to fish. So
there you go. You just captured that beautifully.
Yeah, so you taught them what to do, and it has made a big difference in, like you said, up to 5 million of the locals so far. So that is great. All right, so I think that those are all the questions that I had for you on the topic. So tell us as we wrap up a little bit more about your company. I think you told us the website bbcollaborative.com. So
Yes.
yeah, so go ahead and, share some more information on your company, that whatever you want to share.
Yeah. So actually, the company that I work through, for BB Collaborative is called Shifted Institute. And it's my
Mm,
wife and my company. And our company is all about igniting consciousness, inspiring human potential, and creating paradigm shifts. And, she works in various ways, to help, shift consciousness. But the primary thing that I do 97% of my time is through the Bridge Builders Collaborative. That's this group of investors. And yes, the website's bbcollaborative.com. People can find me on LinkedIn, at Charlie Hartwell. I have a Medium blog, so I write articles about sort of the mindfulness consciousness space. So that's just Charlie Hartwell as well. And, on the website, you can find out we've invested in about the 15 companies we've invested in, and, a little bit more about our mission and the way we do things.
all right, so that's good. So your company is, I know you, I missed your wife's company. What's it called? Shifted what?
Oh, well, that Shifted Institute.
Institute. Okay.
Yeah, then that's just shifted.com.
Okay. All right. So I like that. Shifted.com. All right. And you are part of the consciousness. Yeah. So if someone wants to get a hold of you, I like the fact that you're in LinkedIn. They can get a hold of you at the company, and I guess they can start if somebody has met the criteria, like you said, that they have a product already, that they already have the product, and they want to apply for funding or to have to come on board as one of your investees. Is there an application process on the website?
No, I mean, my email's on the website, but
Okay,
basically,
they'd have to email you.
just
Okay,
just to be a little bit more specific about that, we normally look,
okay,
for companies that have maybe, $1 million in revenue, or approaching that. And
okay.
so what we're doing is providing what we call growth capital to help them
Mm-hmm.
to sort of take their product or service and scale it.
Okay.
And people, normally what people do is, send me an investor deck, which they can
Okay.
do through my email, which is charliehartwell@mac.com,
Okay.
and tell me a little bit about the product. And, and if it, if it fits the criteria of what we look for, we might start a conversation and have a conversation and see if there are ways we can collaborate.
Sounds perfect. I love that. Sounds perfect. All right. Well, yes, if we're talking about, products like Muse. So, anybody that's listening that know they have a product that, they need maybe to put some more science behind it, or they need some investment, or they need to grow it, make it global. Maybe they're only in the United States and they want it to be global. Then that sounds like something that that your company can do. So yeah, I definitely enjoyed our conversation, Charlie. I love the fact that the space that you guys are in, definitely want to make consciousness. I like your wife's company, shifted, because we're looking to shift consciousness and shift awareness and meditate. And if we're going to borrow a word from Sadhguru, your inner engineering.
Yeah.
And so I love that. And as you said, that you guys are probably one of the only companies that's in that space. So it's a good technology to investing. And yeah. All right. So I don't have anything more. I just wanted to thank you for coming on the show and expanding our consciousness on how we can possibly build our inner engineering and meditation and, having a global impact in the world, because, we start by changing ourselves first. So once we change ourselves, or we change internally, then we can contribute to the global movement towards spirituality. So I want to thank our listeners for staying with us until the end. Want to remind them that if they want to get a transcript of my conversation with you, and they can head over to my blog, which is also the show page, which is blog.myhelps.us. They'll find links to your website and any of the links that we talked about, like Headspace and the Happy Leaf. I will definitely, if there, I'll link to them. I want to thank sponsors for this episode. They'll also find links to our sponsors on the website. I want to invite you guys all to join my private Facebook group called Life Coach, and to remember to subscribe to the Transform Your Mind radio and podcast. It can be, you can download on any of the podcast players. And now we are recording on video. So definitely head over to YouTube so you can see my conversation with Charlie live, and subscribe as well. So any last words, Charlie, before we sign off?
Yeah, in these times, since you mentioned Sadhguru, one of the things that I really appreciate is that, to transform the world, in a world where there's such suffering and struggle and inequity and injustice, actually we transform that by being in joy. I mean, and being fierce and being, expressing our anger and all of that. But joy is, an important component to our own health and to how we transform our minds.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yes. So I'm definitely interested in hearing more from Sadhguru on that. But like I said, I just started the book today, and that's the first things he talked about, that, children were joyful and adults are not. The older you get, the less joy you have. So I will be interested in learning myself how to transform my joy, even though I think I'm a very happy person generally.
You seem like it.
Yeah, I am. So awesome. Well, listen, I want to thank everyone for joining the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life Radio Hour. Until next time, namaste.